Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Championship Leadership Podcast, and we have Kent Clothier here. He is the founder and CEO of Real Estate Worldwide, and most importantly, proud husband, father of three kids. And out of San Diego, we're just talking. I'm in the winter wonderland here up in Minnesota, and but we both getting ready for an amazing Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is tomorrow,
Yep.
as we are recording this. So I love this time of year. But thank you so much for taking some time to be here. Appreciate it.
Oh, dude, my pleasure, bro.
Yeah. Real quick, I always like starting out with this question, the name of the podcast, Championship Leadership. So always interested to hear, like, what comes to mind for you, or what does that mean to you, championship leadership, when you hear that?
What comes to mind? I would say probably the first thing that jumps out to me is that leadership is defined by doing things that others are either unwilling or unprepared to do. What I mean by that is that, a lot of people have this misconception of that being a manager is a leader, or being just as it relates to business. And for me, nothing could be further from the truth. At the end of the day, business entrepreneurship is extremely challenging, and you are definitely going to get hit. And you're going to get hit a lot. And if you are not prepared, one, to take those hits, and two, to kind of lead the charge and lead your team and lead your community out onto the battlefield and then continue to fight every single day, well, then you've got some work to do, right? Leadership is about being able to step into the challenges that come at you versus running from them, retreating from them, cowering to them, which unfortunately is what a lot of people ultimately end up doing, because they are prepared as managers or as business owners, but they're not really prepared as leaders, right? And then they get one of the common things that we kind of echo throughout our organization, and that I try to instill in everybody around me, is that mediocrity is the enemy, and that in almost globally, most cases, when things get really, really, really challenging to the point where you absolutely feel like giving up, that is the exact moment when you need to be telling yourself, this is exactly when my competition will stop. And therefore, all I need to do is to keep moving forward. Be the leader, step into it, do what you got to do. So that's probably as easy a definition as I can give to you.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. And I would like to expand on that maybe just a little bit more. I don't know. Sometimes I'll throw generalizations out there, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do or not. But I feel like this day and age, this time that we are in, it seems more so like when there is that little bit of pressure, or instead of leaning in, people, the default is definitely to maybe not do that, to retreat. And I don't know what that is. If it's used to, social media, everything else, it's instant gratification. There is a lot of political correctness going on. And I think that harbors a little bit of a soft-sidedness in many, which would have you retreat in those moments. It wouldn't have you lean into it. It wouldn't have you see that as a sign to be like, man, all right, this is the time to step it up. Like, we're close.
Right. Well, even if you're not close, that's the thing. That is probably if I was going to say anything, your last comment is probably the most profound, in that when people don't have a clear finish line, or they don't have a clear objective, some way of understanding that how distant the outcome really is, that's when people give up, right? They don't understand. It is not positioned correctly in their mind, right? I work with a lot of people around the country, a lot of entrepreneurs, and I can tell you that most of them, they position success as a finish line, because they have a goal, they have an objective that they're trying to get. And rather than understanding that, that you have to embrace the struggle, that the journey in and of itself is the win. Getting through those processes and getting hit, getting beat up, getting knocked down, that is all part of it, and those things are wins, right? It creates that intestinal fortitude that is required, quite frankly, to be successful. It's not a matter of if you're going to get tested; it's just a matter of when, and are you prepared to do what it takes to keep pushing ahead without a clear line of sight of when that pain is going to stop. It takes a really special kind of mentality to do that. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of training, quite frankly, to do that. And unfortunately, the only way you can get the training is to go through it. It's just, I mean, you've got to get in there and mix it up and go for big, huge goals, go fight for things that actually matter, right? Versus playing it safe time and time again, as I like to say, kind of wrapping that little blanket of mediocrity around you. You got to break free of that. I mean, there's nothing to be gained there, right? And every time you go for it, you can count on at some level you're going to be tested. But that just kind of hardens the steel. And over and over and over, you look up and you realize that even when I didn't win, I was winning.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, some things in life, there is no shortcut to it. Right. That experience, I think you were just talking about that, right? To become a leader, it's, and not just a leader, to become what you would define as successful, whether it's in business, whether it's at home, as a parent, as a husband, as a father, in all walks of life, all areas of life. Like there's just sometimes you just got to put the time in to get the experience, to gain the wisdom, the knowledge. And then hopefully once you have that, the awareness to be able to see it for what it is and to use it to continue to move you forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would, the analogy I use a lot with my guys is, when you see an MMA fighter train or you see a boxer train or what have you, they train by walking into the ring and getting the crap beat out of them, right?
Yeah,
You have
right.
to think about what
Yeah.
that kind of mentality that takes to somebody to literally walk into a ring in front of thousands of people. And, 5 minutes before, when he's putting the gloves on or she's putting the gloves on, they clearly know that they are about to get hit right in the face as hard as somebody can hit them, right?
Yeah.
And how special an individual that takes to kind of go through that. And there's no amount of reading a book or watching a YouTube video or going to a seminar, nothing that they could ever do is going to prepare them for that outside of just doing it. And entrepreneurship is very, very similar, right? Running businesses and scaling businesses and building successful lives and fighting for your dreams. It's exactly the same way. There's just nothing you will gain a lot of knowledge, but there's nothing like the real thing. Getting out there and being tested like you've never been tested before, and staring that abyss right in the face and just entertaining your worst fears, knowing that you could go out of business in a minute. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff that makes you so powerful as you continue to progress through life.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
leadership is.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started in this path.
Yeah. So I got started when I was 17 in business. My father was in the grocery industry, and we started what was back then was referred to as diverting, but it was kind of basically an arbitrage business where we would go and buy a truckload of an item, a grocery item, in one market where the manufacturer just happened to be selling it at a discount to Kroger or Safeway or Winn-Dixie or Publix or whoever. They were just selling a truckload of Campbell soup at a discount to gain market share, in Atlanta, Georgia. And we would go in there and buy that entire truckload basically out the back door. And then we would turn around and ship it to another part of the country, the exact same item, right? And we would ship it to another part of the country where the manufacturer wasn't selling it at a discount. And we would make the spread. And so we never manufactured anything. We never built anything. All we did was just kind of play in between and took advantage of inefficiencies that were in that market. There was a fairly sizable market. I mean, if you think about it, there's 40,000 items in any grocery store at any given time. And so a lot of those items were ripe for that kind of opportunity. And so by the time I was 23, that business turned into a $50 million a year business. By the time I was 28, I was running an $800 million a year company. By the time I was 30, I was running a $1.8 billion a year company, seventh largest privately held company in the state of Florida. And very fortunate that, through those acquisitions and my father moving out and other companies moving in and me doing all this kind of stuff, moving from Memphis, Tennessee to Florida, that I was kind of a really big deal in that industry. I was kind of like the golden boy because I had been very, very successful for a long time. And I got whacked, had a run-in with my business partners, the guys that actually owned the company at that point, and walked out of there on March 14th of 2000. Was really pissed off, really wound up, really thought I had it all figured out, was definitely believing my own BS. and then turned around and over the course of the next 2 years proceeded to lose everything that I'd ever worked for, right? Was morally, financially, everything was bankrupt as you could get. I actually should have filed for bankruptcy, but I didn't because I was too proud. That tells you anything.
Yeah.
And so wiped myself out completely, millions and millions of dollars, lost it all. And then ultimately that got me started in real estate. In December 2002, I went to my very first real estate seminar, never even knew anything about it. Was broke as a joke. I was tired of being broke, was tired of being, a fraction of the man I'd been before. Had just started dating a young lady and moved in with her. And basically she was taking me under her wing because I was, like I said, just a shell of myself at that point. And saw what they were talking about on that seminar. And they were talking about a strategy called wholesaling, which I never even realized that you could do, is basically go put a property under contract and flip the contract. And it quickly resonated with me. So I invested in the course, money I didn't have, and quickly started flipping houses. And inside of my first year, flipped over 90 houses, made over $1 million, got kind of back on my feet, quickly turned that into a business, a real business. And it started growing very, very rapidly. And it's a business now today that still flips 900 houses a year based out of Memphis, Tennessee, with my father and my brothers. And they've got an entire organization over there that does that now while I'm sitting here in San Diego. And along that way, a lot of the strategies and tactics that we were using, that we had brought into real estate from the arbitrage business, really started to, they translated well. They made sense, right? Business strategies. And so I started teaching people how we had grown a business so rapidly in real estate. And before you know it, Real Estate Worldwide was born back in 2006. Now we've had over 50,000 people buy our products and our services. We have our software that now has tens of thousands of users on it. We have our mastermind that is very, very successful. Some of the biggest real estate investors in the world are part of our boardroom mastermind. And so it just kind of continues to evolve and evolve and evolve. And along the way, you do it long enough, you figure out a few things. One of the things that I definitely figured out was when I got my second lease on life in real estate for the last almost 19 years, that I figured out how to do it with a lot of balance, right? Basically, my business serves me. I do not serve my business. I've always built it with the end in mind, clearly understanding that my family this time around is the most important thing, because it wasn't the most important thing the first time around. I built that entire business at the expense of my family and ended up being divorced with a young son that hardly knew me. And so proud to say that I walk my little girls to school every day, pick them up from school. The thing I'm the most proud of is I figured out how to do it and still remain a good father and husband along the way.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that reminds me of a post I just saw you make, and you made the post. So I'm going to ask about it because it was there was a death in very close to you and your family, and you just made the comment, and it was something that just really stuck with me. I don't remember many posts as I'm going through Facebook, but of the gentleman that died and just the people that were there to honor him in his life, I believe you said around 600 people.
Mm-hmm.
Just how that's a moment that you just really makes you think about you and how you show up and just really reflect. And I think that's important because, not everybody would be in that situation and necessarily have those thoughts either. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of what we're thinking about. So maybe, I don't know if you could talk, because you are, the success that you've had, and it sounds like, maybe in the first phase of success, that wasn't, those priorities weren't there, but now they are.
Mm-hmm.
And just the fact of learning from that and how important that is. And is that something that you also teach, train?
Right.
To your
well, we have a say, all over my office here in La Jolla, California, we're surrounded by the time is now, right? And it's on my wrist, it's tattooed on my arm. It is a huge, huge factor in my life. I've had a lot of different things in my life that have helped me to understand that the clock's ticking, and we all get a very finite amount of time on this planet, and that it is our responsibility to be as aware as humanly possible of that time, and not be irresponsible with that time, not be reckless with that time. Be intentional every single day with what you're doing, because you just don't know. Quite frankly, when tomorrow's not promised to any of us, right? And so that's always been at the forefront of, I shouldn't say always, basically in my 40s, it's been at the forefront of my mind for a long time, in this rebirth of who I've kind of evolved. And I think we all kind of evolve, right? You know, I'm a very different guy than I was in my 20s building that business than I am in, you know, my 40s. And so through that evolution, I've definitely become very dialed in on time. And I teach people this all and when I coach people, I walk them through how to get the most out of their business and set their business up and scale their business in a way that they can remove themselves and ultimately get, you know, what we're all after, which is freedom, right? It's what we all, I mean, that's why if I asked anybody watching this to define success, almost everybody would define it in some version of freedom, right?
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's a very poignant, very profound thing in my life. But as you talked about, you know, we had a death in the family last week. My son's stepfather, who he was extremely close to, passed away in a tragic accident. And you know, I get somewhat conned into believing into my public persona. If I'm guilty of it, anybody is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that, you know, this, whether it's social media, what these kind of, I don't want to say artificial, but these very different types of relationships that are built online, whether that's with your customers, through your members, through your associates, employees, or just generally out there, you know, in the cloud. We get into believing that somehow we find validation in that. And here was a guy that I have a ton of respect for, and knew that he had been very, very good to my son his entire life. But also really gained an appreciation for just how much time he spent investing in real relationships, which had a profound effect on me, right? I mean, it's not often that you go to a service. I mean, this guy's an airplane mechanic, right? He hasn't, I mean, I don't even know if he was ever even on social media, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But yet he had 600 or 700 people show up at his funeral and show their respects for him and my son and his mother. And because of just how much he had taken the time to, you know, touch the spirit of each one of those people and really help them in some kind of meaningful way. And I just think that goes a long way into understanding that that's the kind of life. I mean, that is a life that can be honored for years and years and years. I mean, no one will ever forget that, right? I mean,
Right.
that will live on for forever. That guy had such an impact on people that people would show up like that. And so yeah, it made me question myself, which I think is healthy, and continue to evolve. You know, whether it's millions of fans online or whether it's, you know, millions of followers or whatever the hell you want to call it. I mean, yeah, my reach and my ability to impact people is big. But there's something to be said for that, you know, one-on-one that I think I deserves some more attention on my part, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for expanding on that. Who are some leaders, some championship leaders that have really impacted you along the way? Maybe directly, maybe indirectly. You don't have to name them by name if you don't want to or not comfortable with that.
Yeah,
But
no, I don't have a problem.
and
Yeah, no, I'll tell you that. You know, my original mentor was a guy my father certainly had a huge impact on me, but one of my original mentors was a guy by the name of Sal Ricciardi, in the grocery business. And he really helped me a lot, helped me grow up a lot. I mean, when you're 27, 28 years old, running an $800 million year company, you're not going to do that without mentorship, right? And so he invested a lot of time and effort and energy in me. And I look back very fondly on everything he did for me. Equally, you know, as I've moved into this business, when I originally got into this business, Stan Merrill and I were very, very close, and he really helped me a lot through my evolution. Roland Frazier, who is my business partner now, Ryan Dice, Perry Belcher, all these guys have really kind of helped me to connect a lot of dots. Frank Kern, who is a good friend of mine. You know, and then recently I've got, you know, Ed Milet, Bedros Keuilian, Joe Marion, Dan Fleischman, Steve Weatherford, Lo Silva. There's a lot of people. I have a lot of people around me that play a role, right? I kind of pull information and tidbits that I'm an action taker, right? So mentorship for me has a tendency to be, I will grab on to a piece of information, just what I needed to hear in a moment, this isolated thing, but I will explore it to the ends of the earth, right? And so I've had a lot of guys that I've pulled and girls over the years that I've been able to spend a lot of time with, and they played really valuable roles in me kind of connecting dots and moving pieces on the chessboard.
Yeah. Yeah. What what's the vision for you? Where are you headed? Like, where are you going? I know championship leaders. I say this all the time, but I relate it to football. Like the Bill Belichick's and Nick Saban's, they have incredible vision,
Mm-hmm.
and different than all the other elite coaches out there because they're winning every year. I mean, it's not easy, but they make it look easy in what they
Right,
do. And of
right.
course, it's not. Otherwise, everybody else would be winning every year. What's that vision for you that you have? You know, maybe
I'm
even
I'm uh,
5 years.
I'm
What do?
extremely passionate about our mastermind, right? The boardroom mastermind. I'm extremely passionate about entrepreneurship in general. But so we're going to spend, over the course of the next 5 years, we are definitely going to grow our mastermind, grow our reach, grow our ability to not just talk to people inside of the real estate space, but really get more of out into the entrepreneur space. And I believe that what we do is unique. I believe in what we do is impactful. As I said earlier, having that ability to connect with somebody at a deeper level, one-on-one, instead of going so wide, is a huge part of our vision, right? The software business is a business that we are that we are passionate about, but quite frankly, we are probably going to try to figure out a way to exit that business sometime inside of the next 5 years, and really just kind of focus all of our attention on really have an impact at a deep level with this core group of people that I hope is, on the side of the next 5 years is somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people that we're meeting with on an annual basis that I know we're creating real relationships and real impact in their life.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, how many people are inside of that currently?
We roughly have about 175 people inside our boardroom right now.
Okay, love it. What is the real estate as far as like doing the flipping over 900 homes? Is that something that you're going to continue to
Oh
grow?
yeah, 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 yeah. I play almost no role in that business today. My father runs that business along with my two brothers. Um, my role there is more strategic at this point, and just help them, kind of gain some insight and some knowledge from when I can provide that for them. But largely, I've exited that business. Um, I'm not hugely passionate about flipping houses. Just being very candid.
Yeah,
Um, I'm passionate about helping people to build wealth, and that's something that we do for them inside of Memphis Invest, bringing them these houses. So entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs out there in the world today, if they're successful, they'll turn around and one of the things they almost immediately struggle with is, where do I start putting this money? How do I get my money to make me money?
right.
Well, that's what Memphis Invest specializes in, right? So Memphis Invest takes entrepreneurs like us and turns around and effectively sells them a performing asset, a cash flow home in one of 7 cities that produces income for them year after year after year after year. And we shows them how to build a portfolio of this, so, which again goes back to creating a legacy, creating impact. I mean, there's nothing more, I can't think of anything more profound than to leave your kids 25 properties that are sitting there producing cash for them at, let's just call it $25,000 a month for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
Right. I mean,
right.
that is a huge impact. And so we help entrepreneurs accomplish that, right? We sell 900 properties a year. We manage almost 6,000 properties for our clients right now. And so it fits definitely into our overall picture, but the actual buying and selling of the house is just not something I personally am particularly passionate about. What I am passionate about is the freedom and the time freedom that ultimately it gives our clients. That is something that I believe is really something to be very proud of.
Yeah. What's a critical moment in your life? You talk about this all the time, like a turning point where, had you could have very easily veered left, and instead you took the road less traveled, and that has you where you are today. But had you, maybe made a different decision in that moment, you could be somewhere very different inside of your life. I think we all have these moments, and it's always good to hear from others that have had the courage to make that decision in that moment, to get them where they are today?
Yeah, well, March 14th of 2000, I decided to walk out in a huff of that grocery business, right?
Okay.
And I was literally at the very top of my game. Um, there was only two guys in the organization that were ahead of me, and that was the president and the CEO at that time. And I had been wildly successful for 13 years. There wasn't one thing I couldn't get done inside of that organization. There wasn't, I mean, I was inside of that industry, right? It was well thought of, well respected. Um, I mean, I was as high as you could probably go, right? And
Yeah.
I made the mistake, but I was also 30 years old and I was also full of crap, right? I believed my own
Right.
BS. And all of that success was 100% because of me. All you had to do was ask me, right? I was that.
Right.
And so um, I, it's 7:30 in the morning. I walked in, or 7:15 in the morning. I walked in, still had the briefcase over my shoulder, and I had been noodling on the night before that I wanted to get some of my equity back in the company. I asked for that equity, and that did not end well. We had a conversation, and at that point, I just decided I was gone, and literally made that decision in probably 30 seconds to walk
Yeah.
away from something I'd worked at so hard at for that long. Pissed off and riled up, and thought I would just go off and build business at the expense of them, and tried to pirate all their employees, pirate all their customers, made every ruthless and dumbass mistake you could make along the way. And then, they effectively put me out of business over a 2-year period. And so, in that moment, if I had just walked to my office instead of walking into the other office, for sure, my life would probably be considerably different.
Yeah.
Many of my friends are still there, right? So,
Yeah.
30-year guys, I was making a ton of money and it'd have been a very different, but God had a different plan for me. And I certainly would not be here now. I certainly would not have the reach, the impact, the ability to touch millions of people and help them. None of that would have materialized. I can't even say that my wife or my two daughters would have materialized, right? So that one decision, which led to 2 years of a great deal of pain. The kind of pain where you're just praying for it to stop. Just give me a break, God. I mean, how can I keep getting hit? That 2 years was very, very traumatic for me. But I look back on it now that I've gained some distance, right? Of course, 17 years later, 19 years later,
Right.
it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me,
Yeah.
right? None of this would happen if I hadn't done that. And I'm as happy as I've ever been. I have a beautiful wife. We live in a beautiful house directly on the Pacific Ocean. I have 3 amazing kids. I have, businesses that are striving and continue, or thriving, I should say, and continuing to strive for more. Life is good. It hasn't always been good, but life is good now. And that's why I come back to the original comment when you and I were talking, dude, is that, it's those moments, that period of my life helped to give me the tools that were necessary for the next journey, right? Because I have relied back on those dark times more times than I can count. Where I look back and I'm like, dude, you've been through the toughest stuff anybody can go through. And look at you, right? You got this. Chill. Just do what you got. And that's a huge gift, right? So if you position the hard times as a gift, and how much better it's going to make you, I think it really, really helps you to push ahead.
Is that something that you try to expose on to other people? Because when you're going through it, like you said, it's almost impossible to see it as a gift. It's impossible to hear it from somebody else tell you that it's going to be okay and it's going to get better and that you're going to look at this as a great moment. But if you if you can get through to some people that, hey, this very well may be the thing that really forges your life and sets you on a path that really could set you up for something completely different that you have even no idea that's coming your way. Like God's got this different plan for you. Is that a conversation that you have with people
all the time? All
Yeah.
the time. My personal coaching clients, every once in a while I'll take some personal clients on and help them go scale their businesses. And this is a constant topic of conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because anything that worth doing is going to require you to get outside of your comfort zone. It's going to require you to experience some pain. And so almost on a weekly basis, I'm on the phone with them, talking to them about, all right, so this is what, this is the good stuff. Doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
This is the good stuff, right? And, Steve Jobs talks about it in his commencement address on YouTube at Stanford, that you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very profound statement, right?
Very.
I mean, when you think about it, I'm sitting here today looking back on what I would have argued then is the worst time of my life, and understanding clearly that dot helped connect dots all the way back to this seat. Yeah. And you can't see that when you're in it, unfortunately. And there's no amount of talking or coaching that's going to help you see that.
Right.
It just has to play out. But if you got somebody in your corner, and you got somebody that's been there, done that, understands clearly that the way to kind of mentally frame it, so it gives you the fortitude to move forward. That's the good stuff, man. That's why we need mentors. That's why we need people in our corner.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And so as we wrap up here, what are maybe one or two things that you could leave with the audience just to help them move forward, that they could take and put into play for them, for their lives today, and help them to move forward in life?
Probably the thing that I'd like to share with my students, all the strategies and tactics and things, whether when any business that you're in or any life that you're, event you're trying to create, whatever it is, right, that you're trying to do in your life, I think it's really, really important to have respect for time. And so probably the easiest way that I've ever found to do that with people is to, if you're a woman, I would tell you to go write down the number 82. And if you're a man, go write down the number 78. And then go subtract your age from it and calculate in a very real way how many years you have left on this planet. Because statistically speaking, men live to 78 in America and women live to 82.
Yeah.
And when you calculate how many years you have left, and then you go multiply that number times 365 and calculate how many days you have left, and then you go take that number and go multiply it by 0.67, because then what you're effectively doing there is taking 8 hours of the day away because you're going to be asleep. Mm-hmm. Now you have how many waking days you have left on this planet. And when you do that and you put that number front and center, and go put it on your bathroom mirror, go put it on your master bedroom mirror, go put it on your office whiteboard, but you keep it right in front of you, it is a not so subtle reminder that the clock is ticking. And every morning when you wake up, every morning when you walk in that office, you just take one number off.
Yeah.
And you get a decision, right? It is a choice on what every single one of those days looks like. It may not feel like you get a decision, but I promise you, you get to decide. And I would take those decisions. If you do that and you have it in front of you. I had somebody that went as far as they filled an aquarium, like a 10-gallon aquarium with marbles of how many days, the exact, and then take one out every day and throw it away. They just quite literally watch their life tick down, like sand in an hourglass. Those kinds of mental hacks work, because it will make you respect time and make you act, right? Sitting around and telling yourself that I'll get to it later, tomorrow, or whatever. No, that is where I was going with the original, which really talk about mediocrity is the enemy. That is mediocre. That is that dumbing down of the world and just getting conned into believing you got time. The world doesn't want you to be successful. You don't deserve this. All that nonsense is just that. You get to decide, but you got to decide one day at a time.
Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm going to do that myself, actually. So appreciate it. How can we find out more about you, or how can the listeners find out more about you? And
I'm easy to find on social media. Just go to Kent Clothier, which is KentClothier, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook. Just find me there, or you can just go to KentClothier.com, or even on YouTube. Just go look for Kent Clothier. But I'm easy to find, easy to connect with, love to interact. So hopefully I get the opportunity to meet and talk to everybody on here.
I appreciate it, Kent. Thank you so much for being here today, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Take care, Nate.
Yeah, you too.